What's up, Warriors fans, and welcome back to Warriors Latest. As always, I am your host, Max Arizin. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you enjoy the show today, as I do post new Warriors videos daily, and it does help the show continue to grow as the season moves along. Now, today we've got a very, very interesting matchup, and I would call it the first big test the Warriors have faced or will face in the regular season. Now, this is the first game in what I like to call a really, really, really tough stretch. Now, I know we have a 6-game road trip, which we should do well on, I hope, but this first game against the Thunder, the defending champs, and then back-to-back games against the Spurs are really going to be a test to see if the Warriors are really championship contenders or they're championship pretenders. Now, tonight, the Warriors, it's really a game time decision for Al Horford, so that is concerning. But at least we have Steph back, and I think that's going to play a very large role. The problem is looking at who's out for the Thunder and who's out for the Warriors. We've got Al Horford as a game time decision. DeAnthony Melton's still recovering. But for the Warriors, the two big ones I see are Jalen Williams as well as Lou Dortz and Nikola Topic being out for the Thunder. And I don't know if that's going to benefit us, but I think it will play into our favor if the team gets off to a hot start. Now, my biggest concern is that, if the Warriors get blown out against the Thunder in Oklahoma City, it's basically saying, yeah, this team is a pretender, because you want to start off a road trip strong. And if you lose tonight to the Thunder, odds are you're probably going to lose to the Spurs both Wednesday and Friday. And when that happens, now the Warriors are under 500. The Warriors up until now have really been treading water and playing barely above 500 ball. Yeah, they started a bit strong, but their holes are glaring. And specifically, it's that hole in the middle and their lack of real front court depth and just too much depth at the backcourt. And the Warriors have to do something about that sooner rather than later. Now, I've suggested trades for the likes of bringing back Klay Thompson, getting Derek Lively to fill the backcourt, as well as create open spaces. I've talked about, getting Nikolai Vucevic, but that's not really going to happen because Vucevic is having a good start to the season with the Bulls. Now that Josh Giddey has pretty much entrenched himself as the franchise cornerstone for the Bulls moving forward, and they have a ton of expiring contracts that they can play with going into the trade deadline. And if you're off to a hot start, it doesn't really matter who you have. You want to keep your team together. Yes, they're going to have a crater of cap space this offseason, and that's going to play well for them. You're not going to trade unless things go south quickly. There are other centers out there, but because of how the teams are operating, you don't know where things are going to end up. You look at, say, the Sixers, we could have gotten Andre Drummond at the beginning of the season, but that didn't work out. And as the month goes along, you know that Seth Curry is eventually going to be signed to the team. So somebody has to be dropped on top of that. And I think that person is going to be DeAnthony Melton. Now back to the Thunder. I'm looking at these numbers. Shea is averaging 32 a game, shooting over 50% from the field, and it's going to be tough to stop him because he's hitting 90% from the line, and call him a free throw merchant as much as you want. There's nothing wrong with selling a foul. My grandfather did it back when he was playing in the 50s and 60s. It's been a thing for the longest time. Flopping has been a thing. Selling a foul has been a thing. I'm not a problem with that. You got to find ways to get to the line because the most valuable shot in the game is not the three-point shot. It is the and one. And those are the hardest shots to get because not only are you creating three potential points, you're creating 2 potential points down the line by getting a guy in foul trouble. So it's going to be interesting to see how they at least limit Shea. I think Jimmy Butler is going to have a good time rotating with him, Kuminga, and maybe Will Richard to sort of limit him. There's not going to be much stopping him, but they're going to do a good job at limiting him. And say if they limit him and they force it to, say, Isaiah Hartenstein or Chet Holmgren, I'm curious to see what happens. Now, with Jalen Williams out, they aren't entirely of full strength. They're going to have it's going to be Alex Caruso, it's going to be Shea, it's going to be It's going to be Chet Holmgren, Isaiah Hartenstein, and those two 7-footers are going to give the team problems. But I believe because the Warriors know how to hustle, they will be able to match up well. And I think this is going to be a good test for Quentin Post as well as Al Horford should he play tonight, because they're going to be able to draw Hartenstein out to the perimeter, allowing guys like Jimmy, Draymond, and Jonathan Kuminga to drive to the basket and get an easy bucket. Now, Shea may be a great player, but he isn't as strong as Jimmy and Draymond, and I wouldn't put him in the same strength level as Jonathan Kuminga either. So I'm curious to see how that plays out, and I think it will benefit in the Warriors' favor. Now, the problem is Chet Holmgren does know how to defend the perimeter a little bit better than Hartenstein, and he is also 7'1". So it remains to be seen how that's going to be effective. But if the Warriors can, say, play both Quentin Post and Al Horford in the 4 and the 5 at the same time, maybe put have Draymond on the bench, Jimmy at the 2, and then Kuminga at the 3. All right, you're creating space that's going to allow Kuminga and Jimmy to be slashers and attack the basket and be successful in attacking the basket. So I think they do have a strategy that can help them win, but as of right now, I'm looking at the numbers. ESPN Matchup Predictor has them at a 23.5% chance of winning this game. I don't like those odds. I can't lie. These are the defending champs. They're 10-1. It's going to be a tough game regardless. But you know what? I see them doing well, and we're going to see how this plays out. Now, changing the subjects, we did lose a legend this past weekend in Lenny Wilkens. Now, a lot of you may know Wilkens, may not know Wilkens, but Lenny Wilkens was one of the early premier point guards next to the likes of Bob Cousy in the 60s going into the 70s. And he also was a legendary coach with the Sonics, helping them to their first and only championship in Seattle back in 1978. Now, looking at his numbers, he was the initial backcourt or initial star teammate of one of the oldest, one of the earliest superstar centers in the NBA, Bob Pettit, playing for the St. Louis Hawks. And he, as a member of the top 50 and top 75 and the Hall of Fame, both as a coach and as a player, he is to be well revered as both. I met Wilkens a number of years ago. He was a very nice man to me at a banquet we were both at. We chit-chatted about my grandfather and his time playing against him. He played against him for 2 years with the Hawks, and while my grandfather was with the Warriors, and it was nice to hear all his nice comments about it, as well as learn about his time in the league, because his time total was from 1960 to 1975. He played with the Hawks, the Supersonics, the Cavaliers, and then finishing things off in 1975 with the Trailblazers, and then was a player coach with all those teams as well. He was a player coach with the Supersonics and a player coach with the Trailblazers, rejoining the Supersonics as their coach in 1977, leading them to the title. And what was it? It was 1979 that Seattle won it. So it does say a lot of how good he was. He won Coach of the Year in 94 and was a 4-time NBA All-Star coach in 79, 80, 89, and 94. He's considered one of the top 10 greatest NBA coaches in history. So I do have much respect for him. I offer my condolences to his family and wish them the best through this tough time. Now, back to a different topic, as this is a bit of an unrelated topic, but it does relate to the NBA overall. Now, a few days ago, we saw the indictments. Well, let me rewind it. We saw the indictments of Terry Rozier, Damon Jones, as well as Chauncey Billups in illegal gambling schemes. Now, that involved, like with prop betting, like over-unders and things like that. With Chauncey Billups, it was an illegal card game and him giving up some information to bettors to sort of pay off his bets, and that's a problem. Now, over the weekend, we finally got the results of Emmanuel Clase and Luis Ortiz's ordeal, where he was tipping pitches off on prop bets as well. And this makes me wonder how pervasive this really is, and if this many players are involved. So far, it's 2 from the MLB and 3 from the NBA. Or, well, technically 4 if you count if you count Michael Porter Jr.'s Jonte Porter. So this is getting really, really pervasive, and it makes me wonder, how is the relationship of sports books and sports betting going to be moving forward with the leagues? And I think this is going to be a huge probe by the federal government that can seriously impact not only the NBA and the MLB, but all major sports leagues. They might make it illegal for those kinds of partnerships moving forward. And if those partnerships are illegal moving forward, the NBA, MLB, and even the NFL are set to lose a significant revenue stream because of this. And how that is going to affect the leagues moving forward remains to be seen, but I do see it, particularly with the NBA, as being a major issue for their financial well-being. We look at it right now, how restrictive the how restrictive the cap is, and I've said this before, that's going to lead to a lockout after it expires in 2029, and this is just going to continue to add to that. The loss of, say, gambling revenue or sports betting revenue is going to create a real problem, because you can't get in bed with the same people that created the commissioner's position outright back in 1919 after the Black Sox gambling scandal. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see who else is involved with this whole scheme, and if this really is the tip of the iceberg for the pervasive sports betting and professional sports racket, and how it overall affects the integrity of the game. And if it really does affect the integrity of the game, there is going to be serious repercussions, not only at the federal level, but at the league level as well. There's going to be so many harsher penalties for players, even looking the wrong way for sports betting, even being associated with certain characters. I think about when David Stern went after Carmelo Anthony after that fight versus the Knicks back in, I want to say, 2007? No, 2008. No, 2006. 2006, where there was a huge fight over at the Garden. Everything hit the fan, and David Stern made an example out of Carmelo because of who he hung out with and how his attitude really just impacted the overall value of the league and how people perceive the league. They didn't want this hood rat vision of the league moving forward. So this sports betting probe is going to be something big, but right now it's in wait and see mode before things really hit the fan. So I'm concerned because this is going to be a problem. I don't think any Warriors players are really involved, because just from hearing them talk, there's a lot of integrity with this team. And they've always been like that for the past 10 years. They have good people with the organization. They have good management. They always sign certain types of players where this thing isn't really going to be a problem. So don't worry about it at the Warriors level. Worry about it at the NBA level. But the bottom line is the Warriors need to start this road trip strong. As I said before, this is the first real test. We've got a game tonight against the Thunder, a game Wednesday against the a game tomorrow against the Spurs, and then a game Friday again against the Spurs, both in San Antonio. Now, if the Warriors lose all three of these games, they are in trouble, because this is a glaring sign that the issue in the middle needs to be addressed immediately, and something needs to be done about the overt depth in the backcourt, because it being this small isn't going to win you NBA championships anymore. Yes, it was nice when they changed the game 10 years ago, but it's not 2015 anymore. You can't get away with having a constant small ball lineup. And looking around the league, all the best teams have a number of big men. We saw what happened Friday versus the Nuggets. Both of their centers, Joker and Valanciunas, scored in double digits, and they had their way with Quentin Post and Al Horford. Now, mind you, Steph Curry was not there, but still, if they're getting to the bucket that easily, obviously it's a problem, and it needs to be addressed before it becomes a festering issue and you fall so far behind that it's impossible to catch up. So, Warriors, start tonight strong, show that you actually belong in the championship conversation, and prove to the rest of the league that you're not just pretending to be championship contenders, to extend the window. And if you need to make a move to refortify the front court. Now, that's all we have today for Warriors Latest. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you enjoyed the show today. And if you have any unique trade ideas on who the Warriors should send out to bring, say, a big man in, feel free to comment below, as I love hearing your ideas. And as always, go Dubs.